Connected podcast. I am your host, Megan Van Petten. Jeff from MEGAFANS is here today to talk to us a little bit about all of the work that you've done in the space. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Megan. Pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting to have you on the show. And it's even more exciting that you were part of one of our past associations that we represented as well. So we must go back maybe 10 years, would you say?
Yeah, at least Fantasy Sports Trade Association. I believe we started working with them in 2011, 2012, something like that. So
yes, so it's about 10 years.
Yeah.
You did. I mean, you have always been at the pinnacle of really cool projects. Here, I'm just going to say it. I think you're a legend in marketing. I mean, you have marketed the best of the best.
I've been very fortunate with my career. This is true. Listen, but it's not just me. I mean, people, it's always a team effort.
Sure.
But I'm very, very fortunate to be introduced to some of the biggest brands in the gaming industry for 22 years. So starting back in 1998, I started working in the iGaming industry, and I was just an independent contractor doing marketing and advertising and public relations for online gaming companies. And I landed Bet on Sports. And as it turned out, Bet on Sports was the largest online sports book in the world. They were on the London Stock Exchange. And, it was, I put out a lot of what I call just positive energy. Like I comment on people's what they're doing. And I appreciate what they're doing. It's sincere. And you get so much more back from that. Like life just gives it back. So I literally complimented David Carruthers, was CEO of that company. He spoke at an event. I went up to him afterwards and I said, "That was fantastic. I took this, and this away from your speech." And he said, "Here's my card. I need to talk to you." And it was just a sincere conversation. And then I ended up working with the biggest online sports book in the world. Then fast forward, 10 years later, I landed DraftKings. Same thing. I was brought in because of my background in gaming. And at that point, I'd worked with Ubisoft and World of Tanks and Jam City. And they brought me and said, "Hey, we know you have a little bit of background in this online, sort of betting arena." And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We're going to introduce you to this new company called DraftKings. They're just raising their first round, and they need a marketing plan." And the rest is history. I ended up, working with them their first 6 years, taking them to their first $1 billion valuation. So again, just put it out there, be sincere, and take an interest. Like, I love what I do. I love this industry. I love gaming, but I love it through the lens of marketing, advertising, user acquisition. How do we get people here? How do we get those people to do what we want them to do, take an action? And how do we retain those people? And I've just kept that simple premise behind what I do. And that has just, propelled my career all the way through to where we are today. So I've been very fortunate.
I can remember, I think we met in New York. But here's what I remember for sure. I remember working with Jason with DraftKings, and, oftentimes when the CEO then sends me off to the marketing person, it's not always as fun as it sounds. It gets very technical and it gets a little bit more challenging because marketers, in my opinion, are some of the smartest people in the world, and they're research oriented and they want results. And with associations, it's more of a who than a numbers game. And, it's hard to prove that ROI, and it's a lot of just being supportive toward the not for profit. So it gets a little tricky. But I can remember, who doesn't remember who's awesome to work with? You are just not only one of the best of the best, you are just absolutely such an honor to work with. And Jason too was the DraftKings was so good to us. They did excellent programs that made a lot of sense and a win-win. And they were just a great company from the start, from the top, to everybody I ever touched. They're not a member here yet, which is interesting. They've attended some events, but yeah, you really have had some interesting stripes. I mean, I'll never forget, like one day going to, it was once the Morgan Stanley venue at Wrigley Field, and it was called, not Morgan Stanley, it was Spiced Morgan Rum. It was a bar. And do you remember that venue? Like when you first walk into Wrigley Field, is it Captain Morgan?
Captain Morgan.
It was the Captain Morgan bar. And it's just this outdoor bar, and it had umbrellas, and it was just my favorite bar. Chicagoans will know. When you go to Wrigley Field's baseball game, you went past the Captain Morgan, and that was for like 10 years, this great bar. And I was walking in there with my brother, and there it was, the DraftKings bar.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I was like, wow, this was when, like, it was just one of those defining moments for me. It was like, whoa, I know Jason,
Yeah. There were a lot of moments like that working with Jason.
Isn't it?
Robinson's brilliant marketer. And we called those brand takeovers. So
I couldn't believe it.
Multiple stadiums across the country.
Yes.
Started, I think the first one was actually Foxborough, so for the Patriots. But we also did subway stations in New York, and we did Dallas, we did Denver, some in San Diego, actually, where I am. And so much fun to be able to do that. I mean, because now you're working with multi-mediums, right? Video projections and outdoor, umbrellas and the promotional items and all that. But they did that for shock factor and for brand recognition, and it worked. I mean, it supported that brand. It elevated it and projected it. You tie it to Wrigley Field, and suddenly it gives it extreme credibility, right? So those were always fun, and the reaction was always great. And Jason used to he would throw me into conversations all the time. He would introduce me as his media guru.
Well, you are. I mean, you're very humble. I mean, you've done some. And then even if I can finish my story, so I'm there with my brother, and now I was like the draft girl for my brothers growing up. I had 3 brothers, and they all played draft, was their thing, right? So you may have met my little brother. He worked security at all of our events. So we're walking up to Wrigley, and our jaws just drop. Because we know Jason, we know the team. We remember when it was an idea. And then we get to New York, and it was so simple. It was the DraftKings on a hot dog stand.
Okay.
Do you remember those? Was that the Subways? And then it was like, oh my God. And then it just took off. Like those were my 2 defining moments. Yeah.
They would do the subway station underground. So you would leave, you'd walk out of the train and see, just DraftKings everywhere, right? It covered the entire inside. Then you walk upstairs, and they would do the hot dog carts and the buses that had those routes.
Yes, that was it. And then there was a bus.
Banners. That's right. Put those up. So it was a shock factor, and that's why we called it a takeover. And we would target markets like that, and then we would hit the airwaves too. So you couldn't turn on the radio or the TV or open, a newspaper or go online to a local newspaper and not see DraftKings. They were everywhere. It was truly a brand takeover, and we would completely infiltrate an entire market for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was, beginning of the football season or whatever the case might be.
Sure.
And it was, again, it was so much fun.
It really was. I mean, I was there. It was so fun, Jeff. And then like the even funner part was, and I use the word funner because is the people that would talk to me now, because no one would talk to me. Right. And then it was like, yes, people get it. And before you know it, fantasy sports was just, a mainstream conversation. And
Yeah.
it's a good segue because it feels very similar, right? Here we are again.
This is what attracted me to the esports market.
Exactly.
My background after, I had about 15 years in the gaming market at the time. And I saw esports as the next natural wave.
Sure.
For the industry, and we're right. I mean, it is, and it's here to stay, and it's growing rapidly, and it's doing everything we, predicted it would do.
Sure.
The cool part is, Megan, you and I know this because we saw what happened with the draft, right? So we've seen this movie. We know where it goes.
We've got the T-shirt,
right? And that's really helpful, right? So when
it is. I mean, people ask me all the time, how do you, because the first wave I was part of was the .com.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like my third rodeo.
Yeah.
Because I was on that one too. And I have no idea why I love this, but I do. I love innovation and being an early adapter. And here's my favorite advice for people, and I'm going to ask yours, is when no one will talk to you and then they will, be cool. That's it.
Oh yeah.
That was my secret at, when everybody then would talk to me, I was like, awesome. So glad. And they're like, I just saw a DraftKings Super Boss drive by. I thought I might call you.
I just turned on, TBS and saw it all over the station. It's like, yes. Isn't that cool? I think our breakthrough moment, my personal one, was when we earned Marketer of the Year.
Yes.
For the Direct Response Marketing
Congratulations. Yeah, that was
huge. And
it was huge. It still is.
What meant so much to me personally was the DraftKings team that was there to receive the award. They insisted, they dragged me on. They said, you are such a key part of this. And I was overwhelmed. It still gets me, I just so appreciative because I like to work. I said, I love what I do. So it's not really a job.
Right.
It's a lifestyle. But I love what I do. And when I get appreciated for it, just means so much. It's so meaningful.
I agree. It's those, the one of my greatest moments in my life that still tear me up is when Matt Berry named me top women in fantasy, and I don't play, right? And it was like so cool because you don't have to do what you think to be in an industry. You don't have to be a player to play at work. There's so much more to a whole entire industry. And that was so wise of him to include me. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not even anybody. Like, what is he doing? And, it was so personally moving to me. It's still one of those, probably literally some of the top most memorable moments of my life.
I'm glad you brought that up because I bring on board for the organizations that I run, I bring on board fresh young people typically.
Yeah.
A lot of times they have very minimal, limited experience, but I look for that spark.
Yes.
I look for somebody that has an interest in what we're doing. And if they have an interest in it and they're curious about it, you can help them and mold them and mature them into, a professional role. And I love doing that. I've been running internship programs. I owned 2 ad agencies before I started MEGAFANS. And I had these internship programs that I hired some of my best people from. And in return for that, my return on investment was I got some of the best ideas from these people.
For sure.
So that's the other thing, and the gaming industry is set for that, right?
Yeah.
Because gamers typically they start very young and they're interested in the subject matter. And then it's okay, well, then what professional lane do you fit into? And, how can I help you fulfill that?
Yes.
And so that I love doing that with my business and I get so much more out of it. So.
Yeah, I really admired that about you. One of your I think your marketing intern even hopped in to one of our committee meetings, I think. And she said, Jeff just told me to come. And I was like, I wish every CEO would do this. She got her finger on the pulse of things, and she represented your brand beautifully. And, it does make it easier having that experience and just valuing everybody's voice in the room.
Yeah.
And knowing.
Conceptualizing our social media branding. So she's helping the team write our branding messages and create our branding graphics and making sure that everything stays on brand.
Isn't that great?
I mean, she again got the spark from these types of organizations and meeting, people like you. So she came back from conversation with you, just lit up.
Oh, good. Well, send her back. We'd love to have you guys on our marketing committee. Social media and just everything. It's just constant evolution. You really have to love what you do in this day and age. I feel like, because I've always done what I do, and so many different associations that I've worked with, and now more than ever, brand and being on top of your game is so important. Like, there's so many medias, there's so many ways to communicate. It's so important what you do is effective, because time feels like it's less every day. I feel like, and I don't want to be in a rush. You know what I mean? I want to enjoy the coffee in the morning quietly and, give 100% wherever I'm at,
It's a lot, right? I mean, look, social media is a blessing and a curse, right? So it's great for promotion. It's great for connecting to your audience and having one-on-one conversations. But there's a lot of it, and there's so many channels, and there's new channels coming on. Every year I do an assessment and say, okay, what are the hot channels right now? This year it's TikTok, for instance.
Right.
And so, okay, now we have to go set up to work on that channel. And so it's constant.
It is.
What keeps me going with that, because I run into the same, struggle. You only have so much time in the day, so much bandwidth.
Sure. Right.
What I always use. And again, it's bringing in these, the new people that are eventually going to replace us someday, right?
Yeah.
And finding one of them that has an interest in that channel, and then saying, okay, show us what you do there and how you do it and what works and what doesn't, and go do some market research for us and, read up on it. And I'll give people a general guideline of how to do research. And then once I can teach them how to research properly, they can go discover anything. And then it's just pointing them in the right direction, saying, okay, go look at this, go look at that. That helps a lot. And this industry that we're in, esports, is evolving so quickly and changing. And I tell people, I got in early. I think it's early. I started conceptualizing MEGAFANS back in 2016 was when I had the idea.
Right.
But it took me a couple of years to get a prototype, get a business plan, do market research. I spent a year doing market research before I decided to model MEGAFANS. I literally went around the country to some of the earliest trade shows for esports, and I interviewed team players, team managers, owners, the gaming companies themselves, the publishers, people from Twitch, for instance. And I asked everybody questions, what are you doing? What do you see? How, what do you see in this market? And then I formed a model, right? I did a competitive analysis, a SWOT analysis. Like you said, marketing people love data. So I dug in, and I spent a full 12 to 15 months analyzing the market before I even put pencil to paper to put the MEGAFANS business plan in place. And then I spent about 6 months fine tuning that before I started building a prototype. So it was almost a full 2 years of market research before I started developing our platform. And I'm glad I did, because the market started accelerating, right, and growth while this was happening. And that helped me see, a sort of a trajectory of where it could potentially go. And it's, here we are now, that was started in 2016. So 5 years later, we've had our product in market. Well, officially, we did a soft launch in 2020, right before COVID, unfortunately. But then we went back inside when COVID struck and kept modifying it and taking market feedback and polishing our product. And we made some significant improvements to it, including community building. And we built our own ad server, those sorts of things that we discovered we needed. And then we went back out to market about 5 or 6 months ago. And now it seems like the timing's perfect. Like the conversations I was having 5 years ago started with what's esports, right?
Yeah.
So you knew the people in the room that you were talking to had no idea what we were talking about yet. And now it's more, what market are you going to take this into? That's where the conversation starts. So the first few hurdles have been moved out of the way. And now it's, okay, we see market potential and market growth. Where are you going with this? And what's your format? And, how do you expect to build an audience and retain that audience? And so the conversations matured with the market. And now, instead of, people typically went to, like, the past 2 or 3 years, I realized all the conversations were based around the US and maybe a little bit of the European market. And now the questions are, what are you going to do in South America? Have you looked at Africa? What about the Middle East? Southeast Asia is already, blooming. And so I'm more excited now than I was 5 years ago, because now I'm like, people get it. They get what we saw years ago,
right.
Which this is a global phenomenon.
Right.
And it's coming. And now it's like, if you picture one of those old Wild West movies where everybody, took their wagons out west and it was a giant land grab. That's where we're going right now, right? That's what's happening right now. It's becoming a land grab. There's bigger brands getting involved. It's now, it's proven that it has staying power. It's not just a flash in the pan. Esports is here. It's for real. It's entertainment. It's, it's massive. And, in North America, we were behind. I mean, the Europeans and the Asians, they were building these giant arenas that would hold 100,000 people, 4 years ago, they were building those. And now we're catching up and the world's waiting for us, right? Because, but us being fortunate to be from, America, the United States, we're brand experts. We're marketing experts. We can sensationalize products and markets and get people excited. So, we produce more movie and music content than any other, country in the world. So this is, a venue, an entertainment venue like that. And that's, I mean, I literally am so, and I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm more compassionate about it every single day because it just has that much more meaning at this point.
It does. And for me, some people say to me, what's enough, Meg? When are you, how, because I work a lot. I love it. Mm-hmm. And I'll just know, but these are exciting times. And I think I'm working healthily more than I ever have, like just fitness and faith and quiet and being ready when I need to be. And so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. This is just really like just one of the most exciting things of everything I've seen. I mean, this is more of a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. We were very early in talking about esports. I think our first esports panel, I don't want to quote, but I'm guessing it was around 2015. At the Fantasy Sports Trade Association. Mm-hmm. And Todd Peterson sat on our first panel. I'm not sure what he's doing now, but I remember talking to him after that and being fascinated at that time. I can remember the moment.
This is the beginning of a really fun ride. That's
It
how
is. Oh my God. I so wish you were in town last week for the conference.
Oh, I do too. Don't pull on my heartstrings.
You might want to save the date because we've already put the date on the books for August of 2022.
Well, I'm actually planning on coming out and seeing you before that. And
Good.
let me tell you how torn I was. Okay. And I'll tell you why. And I have a very good reason for not being able to make it.
Well, everyone does.
Well, we just got into an incubator.
You're kidding. I noticed that you've done that a lot, haven't you, over your career?
Well, we've attempted it a lot in my career. But
okay, because I knew you did a lot of work for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I've worked with, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm probably in triple digits on startups.
Yes, I think you are.
It's something that I'm not supposed to tell people.
Yes.
I'm like, that's a lot. And how many successes have you had? Well, look, 1 out of 20 seems to be the number. So it's, tried and
no
true.
regrets.
Yeah. But yeah, I've worked with, and that's because I'm interested in startups. I like exploring, problem solving. And it's from my background, Megan. I mean, I grew up traveling around the world. My father was in the oil industry, and I got to explore and see and learn. And it opened up my eyes to this beautiful planet we live on. And
Totally.
And really I just connected with humanity. And so, yeah, that's what drives me is people, humanity, that sort of thing. But, so
I saw that you lived all over the world, even as an adult. Well, you've lived in London,
young adult,
Asia.
London was my first stop. I'm a San Francisco native. My parents are both from the Northwest, but my dad was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Sausalito, and fell in love with Marin County, and got married. My mom moved down to California. So I was born in San Francisco General Hospital. And then he was so fortunate to very, very hardworking man. He gave me the day-to-day work ethic of get up early, work first and play later sort of thing. And he got picked up by Bechtel, and Bechtel's the world's largest engineering firm. And they quickly ported him over to the Middle East. And he was working in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and all these places. And then they said, okay, we're going to station you in London so you can travel throughout Europe and the Middle East. And so move your whole family to London. And they put us up in London. What a beautiful country and people. And the company really took care of us. And then it was, we'll go work on the Tulsa pipeline. And he'd worked on the Alaska pipeline, and it was moved back to Houston for a couple of years. And then we got transported over to a gold mine in Papua New Guinea, which was extreme. We were literally living in the bush, about 600 miles from the nearest town, in the middle of nowhere in the jungle, where there was a lot of gold. So places like that, and then China, South China, Mongolia. So yeah, again, very fortunate. It opened up my eyes to humanity.
Yeah, of course.
It really did. I got to see the best and the worst. And that really level set me for life. Don't judge other people. Everybody has and everybody has a mom, that sort of thing.
That's right.
And I take that, and I'm religious as well. I take that into account. And I take that to work with me every day.
Me too.
I think it comes through, I think people just, the sincerity and the real meaning behind this. Look, esports is fun. Esports is exciting. It's growing into a massive market with a massive following. But these are people.
Yes.
These are people playing every day. So, you still have to pull it back and say, okay, what do people need?
Yeah.
What do they want? What's good for them?
Sure.
Right? Let's do good with this. And that's why we do a lot of fundraising, and we're tied in with several different not-for-profits, and we run tournaments, and we have people. Our core players participate in those tournaments knowing that they're not winning any prizes in those tournaments. All the fees and everything around those tournaments go to the charities, and they do it out of goodwill. So I know that we can spread goodwill using esports.
Great. Yes.
And that's
And
exciting.
our world needs goodwill. You've seen our world.
Yeah, exactly.
Front row seat.
Yeah, right. The best and the worst is what I always say. So yeah, and we can help, and we can use, and this is a great platform to do it because of the massive reach. Back to the original point of the conversation. So the MEGAFANS, the reason I chose to build MEGAFANS on a mobile platform first was because it has the largest reach.
Right.
There's currently almost 3 billion people playing casual games on a mobile device every single day. That's almost half the planet.
Right.
That's the biggest singular audience in the history of mankind that I can even think of. It's just that's so big. So how many of those people can we reach? How many of these people can we give a fun experience, a rich experience to? And how many people can we then, leverage, get them to build a community, right, around this, and then use it for goodwill? And so that was one of the premises behind developing MEGAFANS to begin with.
It's a great name too. I mean, I love the name, not just because my name's in it. I like it for all sorts of reasons.
Check that box.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about MEGAFANS and what's coming, what's next. Tell us a little bit about the incubator.
Well, the incubator is very exciting. So we've been approached by several, and it was interesting because it was a cross interview. Some we were rejected right out of the gate. The first one I tried to get into, well, we only had a concept and a deck, right? So they weren't about to get involved with that. They said, come back to us when you have a product. Well, by the time we had a product, we talked to a dozen other incubators, and so we shopped around. And one of the places that we are going is into blockchain, and I'll explain that further down the conversation. So, but there's blockchain-based incubators. So, for people that don't know what blockchain is, it's a software set, but it's the backbone of what cryptocurrencies is on blockchain. And the premise of blockchain is that it's open ledger, meaning every transaction that happens in blockchain is public. You can look up any transaction that's happened in the entire history of blockchain, like it's public domain. Okay. And it democratizes financial transfers or transactions, we call them, right? So when somebody sends money or cryptocurrency, or nowadays an NFT is the new thing, which is a non-fungible token, that has a little 64-character code attached to it, and that's a serial number for that transaction. And that serial number has to be verified, meaning this party sent this X to this party, and they received X. And once those are verified by people, random people on the internet like us, they're called miners, then that block is checked off as verified. And the last six characters in that 64-character code are attached to the next block that comes along, and that's what forms a chain, and that's a blockchain. So that's why it's called blockchain. Anyway, that's part of the future. Gaming is moving into blockchain for multiple reasons, and so that's part of the premise of why we chose a blockchain fund. And if I can, Launchpool Labs is the fund and the incubator that we're working with. Launchpool is the fund. Launchpool Labs is their incubator. We're in their very first cohort.
Wow.
So they've incubated other companies and other organizations for several years, and they actually have their own token that's on the internet, and they're very successful. But the one piece that stood out was they are doing crowdfunding for the companies in their incubator, and they call it egalitarian investment, meaning anybody can become an investor if you use blockchain. And so that got my attention.
Sure.
And then when I spoke with them, it turns out this wonderful woman, Roxana Nasoy, was on their board. And I knew Roxana from another incubator that I had worked with a few years ago. And she and I are like you and I, Megan, we just connected. And so as soon as I saw that she was on the board and she saw that I was applying, it was like done. It was a done deal.
You get those moments in life where you just know, and it's clear. Clarity is one of the most, it's such a gift. So it's like, yep, this is it. I've applied to many incubators and I'm going forward with this one. So God bless it.
It was 100%. And when I found out what doing, turns out she was in charge of the incubator. So she's incubator for Launch Pool. And she walked me through everything they were doing, beginning to end, what they expect to do, that sort of thing. And she said, look, you know, the first cohort is a little risky because we haven't done this before. She said, but you know, I here's the plan. And it completely made sense to me. And I would invite all of your listeners, by the way, they are taking applications right now. They're starting their next cohort in December or January. And it's turned out to be a huge blessing for us. You get marketing support, you get social media support, you get monetary support, you get all these things that an incubator is supposed to provide. They're really brilliant. And they've got experts on their panels, and they have they've already connected us with so many organizations that are going to help propel MEGAFANS, and they become fans.
Right.
They actually get involved with the product itself. And which is great.
Isn't that I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but the support in this industry is off the chain. I use the word chain because you like blockchain.
Yeah, blockchain.
Bringing it all back together. You know, the fact that we all work together, and you sure do, you know, praise the people, and it's so neat. Like as you're climbing, don't break any bridges, because it is full circle. And that story is chilling. I would love to talk to them, because we're always looking at better ways and new ways and enhanced ways we attract about half of our, maybe a little under half of our membership is entrepreneurial, like yourself.
Okay.
And we'll make it and are making it, you know? Yep. So we're always, you know, I would love to meet her and see if there's some synergy.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up our community, right? Our industry supports each other. Because again, going back, this reminds me of how fantasy sports was back at the beginning. Everybody was helping everybody.
That's right.
It's like a cottage industry begins maturing.
Yes.
When cottage industry, it's look, all boats rise with the tide, right? It's an old saying, right. But true. And I feel that in this industry as well. I'm having conversations daily with people, pinging me on LinkedIn much of the time, and just with questions, right? Yeah. Like one-off questions, and then it turns into a conversation. But there's so many people that are curious about it, interested in it, trying to learn about it, that want to become involved but don't know how or where. And believe me, I promote the Esports Trade Association like all the time. I mean,
oh my God, I should just share my journey. I had more people, 5 years ago say, you have to do this, Meg, you guys have to. And then over the last 5 years, because I think we're in year 6 now, literally. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people said, we don't need this. And I was like, after a minute, Jeff, I was thinking, do we not? Does an industry ever not need a trade association? And the answer is no, right? Everybody, right? But for a minute there, it was a slow build. It was so I'm not surprised how long your MEGAFANS took at all.
We're still in the first inning.
Totally.
This industry. I was at an NFT conference.
Which one were you at? Were you at the one in Miami?
No, but I am going to the one in Miami in at the end of November.
Okay.
DeFi, I think. No, this was an online one. It was hosted by Jason Calcase, right? The famous
Okay.
San Francisco. It was one of the people that he works with, was co-hosting it with him. Anyway, and they were talking about gaming, and they were talking about NFTs and gaming, and this natural fit of where it's going and that sort of thing. And everybody, and these were, there were probably 12 different large Silicon Valley investment groups represented there. Everybody said, oh, esports, first inning. Esports,
Yeah.
it's the beginning. The race hasn't even started yet. Everybody in that industry, that we're talking about the investment industry now, they were all saying the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it was interesting. And there's going to be a natural tie-in between NFTs and esports, right? So esports, typically it's competitive sports, but there's usually a reward or a prize or something at the end, right? And these NFTs are a natural fit for that. People have been trading virtual goods in gaming since, I hate to date myself here, but the late 1990s.
Right.
when it was, and it's mostly started in Asia at first, Korea and Japan, actually, when people were trading, swords and potions and things from RPG games and role-playing games and that sort of thing. So there's a natural affinity. You go in and play a casual game or a kingdom building game or a tower defense game or anything like that on a mobile device, there's gems and gold and things, virtual currencies, virtual things of value. NFTs are the same thing, right? So there's this natural fit. So I'm at this NFT conference and they're all talking about the gaming industry. I found that very interesting for us.
That's great. And this has been a nice introduction to people that don't know. And there's so much to learn too about blockchain and NFT. And I think there's so much that we need to have you on the show more regularly.
There's a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about.
I'll be honest. I'm constantly studying it because it moves so quickly. Talk about
it does
fast, and we're basically on parallel tracks with each other. The gaming industry and the blockchain industry,
definitely.
They are converging right now. We're running parallel, but they are converging, and I think it's going to accelerate what we're both doing extensively. So, and it's global reach. That's the other beauty of that, is that industry and our industry can reach every corner of the planet. The next 500 million people that come online for the first time, over 90% of them, their first experience is going to be on a mobile device, because they're not laying landlines anymore. They're building cell phone towers.
Right.
For mobile devices. And so, our next cohort of players are going to be in the middle of Africa and South America and places in Southeast Asia that haven't been touched yet, or, these remote places of the world that we now consider out of reach are going to be within reach within the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes, it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting times. So as we're closing in on here, what's your parting advice for the Esports Trade Association fans that will be watching?
That's a good question. I said it earlier, follow your passion, love what you do, so that, when you have to get up every day or you have to face challenges, you want to. So, make sure you pick an area that you want to learn about, you want to grow in. And as long as you do that, I think anything is possible. And stick to it. Remember the old saying, stick to itness? The old term.
Do.
Yeah. So, you might get knocked down while you're trying to build something or figure this out, but just get up and brush yourself off and keep going. Don't worry about the naysayers. This market is happening. And again, we're in the first inning. I think we're in the middle of the first inning. Like, I think it's the next at bat for the next team. And I think we're going to see explosive growth in the esports industry. I think, the Esports Trade Association is pinnacle for this. And you know what it takes to build, an organization like this. You've done it multiple times before. So it takes time, but it's coming. It's coming. So be prepared, do as much research as you can, help people, in the industry, participate, and you'll get back, tenfold for that. So that's my advice.
Well, that's really good advice. Thank you for being on the show, Jeff Donnelley. It's so awesome to have you as a dual. I don't know what I should call people that have been members of two of my organizations that I've led. It's like, wow. I'm gonna have to think of that because we should just some sort of a double badge, because it's so fun. It's so fun to recross paths. Good luck with MEGAFANS and your team, and congratulations on all your success. And I couldn't agree more. My coach always says, be prepared when success comes, because it's coming. So don't get ready, be ready.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm your host, Megan Van Petten. Thank you for joining us today on Esports Connected. And thank you again, Jeff.
Thank you.
It's really been a pleasure.
It was great talking to you.
You too.